Hello, this is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, always wanting to support you, to assist you in every way that we can, going through the trauma of divorce. And I am very fortunate right now to have with us a divorce attorney that I respect greatly, and he is in the Grand Rapids area. So we're going to ask him some questions about how can I help myself with my attorney? How can I work with my attorney? So I'm really excited to have with us today. I'm going to do a little intro and then we'll bring him on in. Nathaniel Khalifi. Nathaniel grew up in West Michigan, and his family and firm are located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He graduated with a law degree from Wayne State in 2008, and that same year was admitted to the State Bar of Michigan. In 2009, Nathaniel founded his own law firm, helping people with family, criminal, and employment matters. In 2015, Nathaniel joined Verspor Waukes PC, which is a small law firm focusing on business transactions, estate planning, and family law. For the past 5 years, Nathaniel Khalifi has focused most exclusively on family matters, including divorce, custody, parenting time, child support, and changes of residence. Nathaniel enjoys representing men and women with family law matters from all different backgrounds during family struggles. Nathaniel collaborates with his clients. I love that term, and he'll explain that to us shortly. There are many online reviews that testify to his quality and the results of his work. Nathaniel is a husband, father, and he and his wife are raising 3 children, and they worship at Calvary Church. Welcome, Nathaniel.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me today.
I am grateful that you would spend this time with us to help us. So your parents knew that you were going to be an attorney, and at 17, you won your first case. Will you tell us about that?
That's true. Having little ones, I'm starting to understand why they thought I'd be an attorney. And apparently it had more to do with just tenacity and holding to a position really hard and arguing that position, sometimes maybe too often. And because of that, they always thought I should go into law. And then I got into an accident when I was 17, and it wasn't my fault. But the officer's first question to me was, well, how old are you? And I said, I'm 17. He said, well, I'm going to give you a ticket, basically, for that. So we had a little hearing on that. My friend and I prepared for a week ahead of time. We had a whiteboard and we had a marker, and we timed all the different possibilities. And I presented that to the judge, and the judge acquitted me, and the officer was there too. And he was not happy when that judge dismissed that case. But it was a fun story, and I'm glad it worked out that way.
Yes, what a way to start a career.
Yeah.
So thank you again for your time right now, and thank you for telling that story, because in getting to know our attorney, it can help us get to know how to work with them. So I have a series of questions here, and I'd like to begin by asking, it's actually a statement from someone that came to me. I was just served papers. I'm in shock. What do I need to look for in finding a good attorney?
Well, I appreciate that question. That's a hard spot to be in, and I certainly sympathize with anybody in that position. No one sets out hoping for a divorce. Everyone hopes for a happy and long marriage. And I would also say that when you get those papers, take a deep breath first and and try to think of, ways maybe to even avoid this divorce. It's obviously here. You need to deal with it. And we're going to get into that in some detail during this interview. But I'm always hopeful, and I always start all my client interviews even with trying to figure out whether reconciliation is possible. And I think it's worth mentioning at the outset that we do hope that'll happen. And there are cases where a divorce has been filed and people still reconcile. But we can't always count on that. So it is a good idea to start looking for an attorney right away, I think. And I have some general ideas on how to do that. I think that you should recognize that an attorney is only part of the puzzle, one piece of the puzzle, and we're going to talk about some other options while we go through this interview, I think. I think that a good attorney match is someone that you match up with in terms of personality. Every attorney is licensed in the state of Michigan. We've all passed the bar. We're all able to practice law, so that should give us, some basic level of qualification. So, intangible things like personality, and then also their honesty and their responsiveness, and how caring they are and how you hit it off with them is important. That, of course, won't help you determine who you want to interview. And I think that, like anything else in life, a plumber or a lawn person or whoever, you go to your friends, you go to people you trust, and you try to utilize those resources to find a good attorney. Get their recommendations. You'll probably have heard stories from friends about their experiences, and maybe they can point you in the right direction. I think that obviously geographic proximity is important. You know, you want them to be close. There's very practical considerations like that, especially if you got kids and work to juggle as well, because you're gonna have to meet with this person and work with them for a number of months normally. So I would leverage any information you can get from friends, family, church, and I would also look online. I would try to figure out this person's reputation based on what you can find from other people, and even those online resources that you mentioned earlier. I have reviews. I have clients who leave them. They're always a compliment to me. They're a huge honor to get those reviews, and they're accurate. I mean, they represent what people experienced when I worked for them. And I think those reviews really can be helpful. I mean, when I look for anything, I read the reviews. You know, if I'm buying a lunchbox or whatever it is for a kid, one of my kids, you know, it's just helpful to have that information. I think those reviews are real, and I think they're meaningful, and I think that can give you some good direction. So if you see in those reviews, this guy is really responsive, this, you know, really honest, gave me great advice, saved me a lot of money, whatever your perspective is, that can help you narrow down the right person. And then I would go in and I would basically interview the person. How is this going to work? Ask all your questions and see how they respond to that. How do they treat that interview? You'll have to get a lot of mileage out of an interview. But I would try to infer what I could from that first experience with the attorney. Are they on time? Do they look professional? Do they treat you professionally? Does the environment look professional? Does their office look professional? All those things are going to matter. And then do you just have a good connection with them? I think that's really important to a good attorney relationship.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So help us here with understanding my role as your client. What is that role, and how can I help myself working with you?
This is an important consideration. Again, it's like anything else. I think that you know your situation better than anyone. You know your family better than anyone. You know the dynamics better than anyone. You're the expert witness on all these topics. And so thinking about how you can impart that knowledge and so forth to the attorney is very important. And I think it's very important to consider that. How can I fit into this process? And we did mention the word collaboration already, because I really value that. I feel that all my best cases where my firm, me and my assistant, have collaborated with the client, where there's been a flow of information back and forth, where we're responding to what they're expressing, we're giving advice, we're guiding this person through during the entire process. So the collaboration is very important to me, and that means that the client has to be ready to share their goals, to share the facts, to cooperate with the attorney. That can make such a huge difference. Now, the client is the captain, though, of the ship. The client's the one who guides where the car is going to go. I mean, it's very important that the client is engaged and is able to make those good decisions. And that's the role of the attorney, to give them the information to make those decisions. A client won't be much involved in like the tactical everyday things, like how to serve things, where to serve them, that sort of thing, usually. But then you leave that up to the attorney, trust them to do a good job with that. But setting the course and really guiding the attorney as to what your goals are very important. So I think that to do that, like anything else in life, I'd make a list of what you find important. I would write those things down as you prepare for a meeting. Kathy, you have a great resource even for that initial meeting, which I think is really important. The name of your book was the one preparing for your first mediation and preparing for the first meeting even.
Yes.
I reviewed that, and I feel that's a very good resource because it gets you thinking about all the practical things that are going to come up during those initial meetings and throughout the case. A divorce case is almost like multiple cases in one. If you have kids, there's going to be a custody issue, a parenting time issue, a child support issue. Each one of those could be its own case. Then you're going to have property. Then you're going to have spousal support. Each, again, one of those could be its own case. You could be dividing up real property. I mean, a real property transaction, just selling your home's a big deal on its own.
Mhm.
So keeping track of each of those things and starting to think about each of those things and even gather evidence regarding those things, which your book guides people through all of that, I think is very valuable. So you want to be engaged. You want to start thinking ahead about those important topics.
Wonderful, thank you. So how can I use my time with my attorney most effectively?
Well, for those who are not familiar with the legal system, time is very valuable. We say, you know, time is money and so forth, because attorneys bill by the hour. There are three ways you can structure a attorney-client relationship. You can have a contingency fee. You'll hear about that, like in an auto accident case. You can have a flat fee where it's like, I'm going to charge this much no matter what we do in the case, or there's hourly. Almost all family law is done hourly. And so if you save time and you don't, and by hourly, I mean by the 10th of the hour. So we're billing every 6 minutes, we're writing down a charge for what we've been doing during that time. So if you can save time, you'll save yourself money, and it's efficient, and that's very helpful.
Yes.
So I think that it's very important when you're guiding this operation to know what you want to get out of it, to set your priorities. Not everything has the same value or weight. I do a lot of cases involving young children, and I always prioritize them the highest. What can we do in terms of custody and parenting time? Money will come and go. I know money is very important, but getting those kids and focusing on that goal and really putting our energy there is, I think, very valuable. And then keeping that in mind. And we're going to talk later on, I think, about what to not expect from your attorney, and that's important too. And so each little incident that comes up during a divorce, you're going to want to say, how does this fit with my goals? Is this something that my attorney can even change? Or is this something for someone else? And I think really even writing those down possibly and saying, I am going to this attorney to get me structure, to get me custody of these kids or whatever it is. And then saying with each thing that comes along, well, he doesn't want to give me the title to the car, you know, this week, but he says I'll do it next week. Should I call my attorney about that? Look at, you know, your list is the kids are first. The answer is wait, don't call the attorney about the title. You don't even need it right now. You can drive the car anyway. You know, that sort of a thing. I think that having that list and those priorities and talking to your attorney about that and developing that list and priorities can be very helpful in conserving your resources, including your mental and physical, you know, emotional resources as well, not just monetary.
Yes.
A few other points in this, because this is a big topic about how to use your time effectively. I think I started addressing it already. Recognizing the attorney's role. We're going to talk about that some more, but you really want to use other resources as well. Kathy's ministry, I feel, is a very good ministry. I wish every client used the ministry, to be honest with you, because, and I direct clients there, and they've gotten a very good experience there because Kathy's ministry helps you focus on things outside of the law and helps you prepare for and deal with all those little things that are going to make life meaningful and help you move on from a divorce. I feel an attorney's biggest asset, or the thing they can do the most for you, is to give you structure, and then you're going to have to go somewhere else to heal. So don't look to the attorney, for instance, for like intimate counseling with the kids and things like that. Ask the attorney where to go. Ask Kathy where to go. Use those resources, make your own budgets, get your own counseling with a counselor who's trained to be a counselor. We definitely, attorneys, provide a lot of advice, but those other resources are so valuable. You know, when you've got to cry, you don't want to cry on someone's shoulder who's going to charge you $300 an hour for the crying. You know, I mean, we have that happen, and we're there for it, and we do care. But that's going to be the role of your mother or your friend or your church. And I really encourage people to use all those resources during a divorce. And that also will keep costs way down. So it has that other benefit. But again, using Kathy's resources, the one book, again, was Preparing for Mediation. I thought that was good. And I think the other resources are very good to get you thinking about things on your own, because you are going to be on your own. My goal as an attorney, there are two main goals in a divorce. You know, make sure people are actually divorced and provide them the structure of the court, and then get them in a position where they can move on and be on their own and make good decisions. And I try to educate people as I go. And I think Kathy's ministry really, I think your ministry really does that as well. And I think that's very important to people being able to move on and prioritize things. So it's a long answer, but
Thank you
big
for
question.
mentioning. Very important topic. And you mentioned the unrealistic expectations. So let's move to that question. What are the unrealistic expectations people believe about attorneys?
Well, there's a lot there. And I think, first of all, it's very healthy to consider who's the best person or entity for your problem. And it's not going to be the attorney the whole time. Again, the attorney in the court system is there for a certain purpose, which I'll address, but you have all these other resources you're going to want to really use, including Kathy's ministry and including your church and your family. Everyone's going to want to help you. They're there for you, and you're going to want to use all those. So an attorney, again, I think is there to provide structure and to give you, like, for instance, a parenting time schedule, to give you a roadmap for the case and to get you through it. And then you're going to move on with all the other resources. So recognize, this is a big one. I represent a lot of people. My favorite cases really are ones where there's people with religious backgrounds, and they look at this case as a way to get justice. And I feel I can free them so much by telling them this is not about justice, which is going to be shocking to some people. This is family court, okay? This is dirty. This is tough, and the judge is not there to make pronouncements like Solomon that are esoteric and not a, very thoughtful, but not really practical. This is all practical. And the judge is not there to say, he or she is never going to say, you're right, your spouse is the devil, and I hate him, and I condemn him to death, or whatever, her to death. They're not going to do that. That's not what the court's there for. They look at it, the judges look at it, like, these people have to get along. How can I put them in a position to do the best for these kids? And they're focused on the kids. They are focused on the kids, but they're not there to condemn one party or the other. So don't look to the court for that. And don't go to the court or your attorney saying, how can I get revenge for him cheating or her cheating or his alcoholism or her alcoholism or whatever it is. Those things are terrible. They probably are the reason you're there in that divorce, but they are not something that you can go to the court and fight over. The court's not going to tolerate. So don't look to the judge, the attorney, or the court for that. And I think that sometimes people think that the other party is going to change and that the attorney can change them. That's not going to happen either. If they're a dirtbag, that's probably why you're getting a divorce from him or her or whatever. Okay. And the attorney's not going to change them. In family law cases, rarely bring the best out of people. So don't look to the court system for that either. Some people think that divorces are cheap and easy, but again, like we've talked about, there are all these different cases wrapped into one and they're tough. So it's a mistake to look at and say, gee, I feel like we should be done already. Well, that's just, there's probably years of accumulated problems that we're having to deal with in a very short amount of time. So recognize that and recognize it's a marathon and not a sprint, and work with your attorney.
I love what you said, and I hope people will really take this to heart of wanting that justice when you get into the courtroom or when you meet with your attorney. And that expectation has to change for you to be effective in working with your attorney. They're not going to make everything right. I wish they could. I'm sure, Nathaniel, you wish you could make everything right, but it's not your role. So if we go in there wanting that justice, we're going to be sorely disappointed.
And it's like a lot of things in life. We do want it. That I think was one of the reasons my parents always thought I should get into laws. I loved right and wrong. I was very like black and white. Okay, I've lost all that in family law. I'm just kidding, but I recognize the place for that, and you have to recognize that a lot of this is going to be sorted out on the other side. You're not going to be vindicated here, and vindication won't actually matter to your children. Okay, what will matter is how they do in school. Do you get them there on time? Are you helping them with their homework? All those little things are what really matter to those kids, not whether you drove the other party into the dirt and they ate dirt, during the case.
Yeah, wonderful point. Wonderful point. Yeah, and good thought that what are your children going to remember through this, and what are they going to take with them? And your role is really to minimize the damage as much as possible, as a parent, as a client, with an attorney. Talk to us about the process of the divorce. You said it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and that goes into the expectations of people as well. They think, well, this should be over with quick. It never is. So speak to us about the process of the divorce and how quickly can I get this finished?
I recall from a criminal law case, actually, it was a Supreme Court decision, and I think the justice said, it was a United States Supreme Court case, and the justice said that due process is deliberately slow and inconvenient. That's the whole point. And so when you say, why isn't it faster? It's because they want it to be slower. If we all just ran into court and duked it out, there'd be blood everywhere, right? So they know that time and attrition will wear people down to some extent too, and they'll become more reasonable over time, to be honest with you. So just to be like real practical, you're gonna hire an attorney that'll take you a few weeks. You're gonna get those initial filings ready, which will include a divorce complaint and other paperwork that we need to file with the front of the court. That'll take a few weeks normally. I'm just giving you rough estimates. You're gonna have to give those documents to the opposing party or that party's attorney. That'll take a week or so. So you're up to maybe a month there at the most. It shouldn't, I mean, ideally it doesn't take that long. We try to move people through much quicker, but that could be a somewhat realistic time frame. And you're gathering evidence and things like that along the way. Then in a divorce without children, that divorce can be theoretically finalized in 60 days. If things go extremely smoothly, we can do that. If there's just not, if you've only been married a year, there's no property issues, there's no kid issues, we can move through things very quickly. Both parties are motivated to get out, they're healthy, everything's fine, they'll just move on. That'll take, 60 to 90 days. And then when there are children involved, those cases take, they're required to go 6 months. I think the legislature has that in place, at least 6 months, I should put it that way. The 6-month waiting period is designed to have people reconcile. And again, this is all in the divorce context. So if we have a post-judgment issue, after the whole divorce process is done, or after there's been a judgment of custody or paternity or child support entered, then there can be issues that come up afterward, and that'd be a whole different scenario than what I'm describing here. This is strictly divorce. And for divorces with children, they have a 6-month waiting period, again, hoping people will reconcile during that 6 months. So you cannot finalize the divorce before that 6 months is up. Now, during that time, though we're busy, and where the other party will file an answer, and then you will conduct discovery, it's called. There's a new rule in place where you have to exchange financial information right away, and we like that rule because good attorneys were doing that anyway. And so we exchange that information, we give the cards out on the table, we kind of see where things are, and then we try to divide them up and settle things the best we can. We settle things through mediation, we settle things just through conversations with good attorneys, and we settle things, sometimes it goes to a settlement conference. And a settlement conference is just like it sounds. It's where you sit down with a judge and you try to, and the judge can give you some feedback on what his or her opinion is regarding your case. And so you hope to get some feedback on maybe a key point that's sort of been holding up the settlement, and then you can settle with that information. Judge like, well, I was leaning this way or that way. And that will kind of tell you, boy, I better settle on that point because this is what the judge's saying. Your attorney will handle that settlement conference. You'll be there though, and the idea is that you want to get a settlement that day if you haven't already. And if you don't get a settlement then you're headed toward trial. The judge will schedule a trial, and that's not the end of the world. That's nothing to be afraid of, but that is the next stage if you cannot settle everything. So overall, generally, a case with kids will often take 6 to 10 months to resolve, 12 months at the outside.
Great. Thank you for that note. Thank you for these helpful guidelines. I think we should take them to heart and to realize it is a collaborative relationship. It's not someone who's going to go, that you're going to go to and they're going to do all the work. It is important that you do that preparation, that getting ready and working with your attorney. So these are great and helpful guidelines. So do you have any final thoughts for us on what we can do to help ourselves working with an attorney?
Again, I want to thank you for allowing me to do this interview with you. I'm very passionate about representing families and people during very difficult times. It's not easy, and it's really an honor to be there for people going through a divorce. And it's an honor to be able to speak to you today about it. I really do believe in your ministry, and I hope people use it because I try to emphasize in my practice that people going through a divorce want to use every resource that they can because those people are there for you. Don't be embarrassed. And even if you are, still go to them. And if you don't go to them, they'll be angry at you after the fact, wondering why you didn't go to them. Okay, if they really love you, which they do. Use every resource you have. Be resourceful. Go to those people. Know that they want to help you. And then, we've talked a lot about how to select an attorney and how to stay with an attorney. I'd say this is a hard advice to give, but if things are not going well with the attorney, you do have the option to go with another attorney, which is a hard piece of advice to give. I mean, I suppose that could be used even in, situations I'm involved in, but we try to meet all needs. And sometimes you'll find maybe that you just have a personality difference, and you just deal with that and move on from it. Don't feel like you're stuck though, where you feel like, gee, I don't have the information I need to make good decisions. I don't know what's happening. You should know what's happening. You should be empowered, and you should be able to make good decisions. And if you can't, then you should think about maybe getting other counsel. I guess I hate to leave on that note, but that is an option.
Well, and that leads me to a question that I neglected to ask you, because I thought it was smoother to jump into another question, but what do I need to be aware of on the contract? So if I decide, okay, this attorney's not doing anything for me, we're not making progress, but there's something in the contract we need to be aware of if we're going to change attorneys, correct?
Well, when you're reviewing a contract, this is an important point, that you want to look at the hourly rate that they're charging. You want to look at how they're charging. Again, recognize that it's by the 10th of the hour. And always look at what the attorney's doing and not doing. So for instance, in my contracts, I say right out, mine are only a page long. I try to keep them very simple so that they're legible and understandable very easily. I say, I'm representing you in this divorce or this custody issue or whatever it is. And I'm not representing you on appeal, or anything else, because that can be like a whole nother matter essentially. So I want to make that clear. So you want to read that. I would just say, just take your time to read the agreement. You're not stuck with that attorney though. I mean, I think that'd be illegal almost, like to say that you have to stay with me or whatever. So just be tactful, like you would with anything else, and just say and bring up your concerns and see how the attorney addresses it. Be proactive. And if that doesn't work out, then you should consider maybe getting other advice.
Great. Where can we connect with you, Nathaniel? Your website, your phone, that information?
Well, like you indicated at the beginning, I work for Verspor. I'm an owner also of Verspor Walkus, VERSPOOR. Walkus is WAALKES. And we handle business transactions, a lot of estate planning, and also obviously family law. And you can connect with us online. Obviously, we have a Google page, we have a website, and our phone number is 616-459-6100. We're always happy to talk. We can set up an initial consultation or whatever you need. And email is njk@vwlst.com. So we're happy to help.
And I will also add a link when I post this on the Facebook page. I'll add a link to your website, so that might be helpful as well. So if you didn't write it down, it's okay. We'll have that there for you. So I appreciate you. I have heard some of your clients and how well you have worked with them and how you have supported them, and even encourage them or show them how to stand up for themselves, because that is something that many people struggle with, especially when they are so worn down through this divorce. So I appreciate you very much and your work and your ethics, and we'll be corresponding, I'm sure, soon. Nathaniel Khalifi, thank you for your time, your information.
Thanks, Kathy.